to my next guest, James Ball, who's political editor at the New World. Favourite takeaway, James?
I'm a chicken shop guy, Julia.
Oh, chicken! He's a chicken shop boy. I would not have had you down as a chicken shop boy, but there we learned.
Did you have me down as a vegan?
Probably. Hummus. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would have thought quinoa and hummus would be your two favourites, But you've gone up in the estimation.
I'm delighted.
Bit of good animal protein in your diet. That's what you need to. James, let's talk about where we are today, because I'll put the question to you, I'm putting to our audience. Are you more concerned about the economy or immigration, given these two, Chancellor Rachel Reeves off at the IMF in Washington, these not good figures from the IMF at all, and the Home Secretary, Shahama Mahmood, speaking at a conference in London today, basically admitting we've got completely wide open borders. What are you more concerned about?
The economy. I think voters care about both. I think voters care about the economy more. And ultimately, a lot of our crises come down to that. Cost of living is what matters to most of us. There is a lot, the bills are going up a lot higher than the wages. I'm noticing that. I'm sure you are. Yeah. I'm sure everyone who's listening is. You can't fix cost of living without fixing the economy. I think that's the number one issue. And let's be honest, it doesn't look great. Immigration matters to people, but this government, let's say by magic, they fixed immigration overnight. If they didn't fix the economy, they're still getting booted out. This
is true. It's the economy, stupid, as a senior advisor to Bill Clinton said in one of his election campaigns. That's what it's the pound in your pocket. And everyone, I don't care, rich or poor, is noticing how much prices are going up. And the IMF are predicting they're going to continue to go up. Inflation is going to be among the highest of the G7 countries. But it also pointed out, these figures on growth. Our growth in living standards is among the lowest. But also, crucially, although we do have some of the highest growth, and Rachel Reeves is very big, we've got some highest growth in the G7 countries, when it's per capita, when it's per head of the population, because we've had millions more people arrive in this country, it's not down to a great, wonderful high birth rate. It's because we've imported a load of people. Our average, our per capita growth has gone down. Now, you're someone who's been massively in favour of immigration, with free movement between us and the EU, absolutely not an issue. Many on the left very much in favour of pretty much free movement from any country. If free movement, if immigration on a mass scale we've seen since Tony Blair onwards is so good for our economy, why doesn't our growth go up more? And why, when it's measured per head of the population, doesn't it look higher? Because if these people are all contributing and they're all high earners and they're all so skilled and they're all contributing and making our lives better and richer, why are we poorer?
Well, they're not. I mean, we haven't done immigration in the better ways we can do it, and immigration has not been a silver bullet that saved our economy.
We were told it was.
I think it has been a bit of a sticking plaster on gaping wounds. I think we wouldn't have a social care sector if it wasn't for quote unquote low skilled immigration.
No, but hold on a minute. We heard this.
Okay,
lots of people. No, James. Lots of people say this, like, well, carers are doing those jobs. Are you pretending? Again, this is the madness of this argument. If we didn't have these people coming in from Eastern Europe or Africa or Philippines or wherever, working as carers on low wages, then what? All the little old ladies in this country, all the old men who need care, they would just all be just lying there dead in their care homes. No, they wouldn't. Someone else would do that job, but they do it at a higher wage.
We'd be having to look at higher wages,
yes.
And perhaps that's what we should have done. Except our councils are already on the verge of bankruptcy. We haven't been willing to pay what care costs.
Yep.
And the way that we have underpaid for care, and often this leads to awful treatment for vulnerable adults, for older adults. I think we all know people who rely on the care system. And it's underfunded and it's miserable. So because we won't pay for it,
but we would have found
we need immigration to do it.
The care system,
and that's where it's been a sticking plaster.
No, James, this is the thing. But people say the care system would collapse, or the NHS would. No, they wouldn't. None of them would collapse. Or the system would carry on. It would be done in a different way. But here's the thing. You said there were better ways of doing immigration. What are those better ways?
Look, I think we do have to look. My assessment is we can actually take pretty much any level of immigration we want if we are willing to charge for and build the services that they need. You can't have immigration at 900,000 a year or 400,000 a year when you only build 100,000 homes a year. Like, that doesn't work. You can see that the maths doesn't work. And that also then means that schools are overstretched or doctors' surgeries are overstretched. So if you're going to have high immigration, you need to build the infrastructure for high immigration. if you're not going to build the infrastructure, you need lower immigration, and you need to accept that we might then have some skill shortages, or we might have higher wages, we might have inflation problems, we might have lower growth. Now, what we've tried to do for the last decade is have high immigration and not build any of the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually been bad for everyone involved, because it's not the fault of someone who comes here to work as a care worker that there aren't enough homes.
No.
You know, they come, they work, they're actually plugging a gap from the bad choices our governments have made. And I think they end up demonised because of those choices. And
I'm not demonising anyone who comes to this country to make a living.
Yeah. My personal stance is I don't personally mind if immigration is high or low if we build the right services and the right infrastructure and if it works for the country.
And that's, okay,
I think what's been broken is we've let it be high and we've not built that infrastructure.
Yeah, and again, that's been since 2000 when Tony Blair just opened the doors wide open to Eastern Europe. I agree with you on all of that. Apart from, you're saying it doesn't matter to you. Now, it does matter to most people whether or not we have a massively churning new arrivals in terms of the population. It does matter to people whether people who arrive here, not just whether they've got somewhere to live and whether there's another doctor's surgery opening up so they're not having to wait 3 weeks for a doctor's appointment. They would like the people they live next door to integrate, to speak English. Maybe they could invite them over for a barbecue. The people want to feel that they are living in the country that they grew up in, not in a backward, not in we're all waving a flag at the coronation nonsense. I'm talking about Britain remaining Britain and people coming to Britain to contribute, but also assimilating, integrating, accepting British culture, working towards, speaking the language, all of that. But it's interesting because so many, I think, from your side of the argument, you don't really care about that stuff. This is the sort of citizen of nowhere idea, isn't it? It doesn't really matter to you where people are from.
I don't think it's quite true. I think you'd be a bit of a weird person if you said, I don't care if people never learn English or never sort of try and integrate. I think, the best bits of Britain are where we get bits of other cultures and we make them part of British culture.
They aren't. Why do you think that?
Tikka masala as part of a national dish, all of that.
No, that was brought over by Brits from India.
But I think the people on my side of the argument tend to live in the places that have highest sort of populations born abroad. We live in London. That's got the highest born abroad in the country. Thank you for joining my cat.
I'm going to get hello, cat.
Yep. We have, we live alongside these and we do sort of see these cultures mix. Now, have we done it well? No. Have we got a falling community across this stuff? Yes. You see things like youth groups or community groups that used to get council funding where people came together now rely on one volunteer that's usually a man in his 70s who's worried that the whole thing will fall apart when he dies. I think we put other problems on immigration.
But this is a result. You're saying it doesn't matter whether immigration levels are high or low. You're saying, yes, of course you want people to integrate. But this is the point. You can't integrate and assimilate people arriving on the scale they've been arriving. Proof is in the pudding. But the thing I just find extraordinary, the number of people who will say the best bits of Britain are where it's basically not very like Britain, where it's diverse. Where it's like, I've got lots and lots of friends who've come from abroad, lots and lots of friends who've had a first language or still have first language that is not English, but who are totally assimilated to this country, who wanted to come and live here, whose children, they speak formal English, their children speak fluent English, they accept Britain's laws and culture and are part of the community, which is very, very different from huge numbers of people coming to this country from many different countries, arriving here and going, I'm just going to set up my own country, all the culture, everything, and I'm going to set it up here in Britain. And that is what changes a country. And no, I don't think the East End of London is a wonderful, much better place now because it's largely Bangladeshi than it was when it was largely indigenous white Brits. Nothing to do with the colour of anyone's skin. It's just, why do you think that's better than it was? I don't understand. What's better about it?
I just think it's a nice bit of town. You've got pubs next to mosques. It generally goes fine. It's a good bit of London.
You've got fun runs that girls over 12 aren't allowed to join for religious reasons, for Sharia reasons.
Look,
That's great, isn't it? That's Britain. That's Britain. There you are. That's the local community really, really, getting integrated, becoming British, isn't it? Saying,
No,
yeah,
I'm
sorry,
a humanist.
sorry,
I
you've
agree.
started
I
your
oppose that
period,
stuff.
love. You're now fair game, and you no longer have equal rights with men, because that's what the message was on that fun run, wasn't it? That's
agree
why
that
over 12-year-old girls weren't allowed to join. But you're happy with that, because that makes Britain better in your view, doesn't it?
No, I'm not. I think, look,
That's what you signed up to.
No, we tolerate religious freedom in this country. We let within their own sort of private spheres, different religions can practice within limits what they want. I don't think as a state, as official public services, as anything getting public funding, anything should be allowed in there. I'm a humanist. That's where I push from. I don't like that stuff at all.
Should it be illegal?
But I tolerate it.
I don't tolerate it. What if they said no gays?
What
if they said no gays? No gay people?
I obviously oppose that. That would cause me some problems.
Well, no, but you would tolerate it, because I wouldn't.
No, this is why I say within some limits. But, I don't like that where it's fundamental Christian groups doing it. I don't like that when it's fundamental Muslim groups doing it. We agree. I think where you get some problems are where you try and do forced integration. And I think France is worse. Well, no, I think France tries this.
Don't have people come here who don't want to integrate. There's your solution. No one's
France tries this, and it is worse at this than we are. Look, let me say Britain is better than somewhere in Europe. I can say that. France tries to force a lot of this, and I think actually we are better at integrating than France is. And we don't need A-level English and to teach immigrants Beowulf to do that.
James, the thing is, you shouldn't ever have to force anyone to integrate. If they've come to your country, they should want to integrate. If they don't want to integrate, you shouldn't have them here. James, we'll leave it there. Political Edge of the New World. Covered a lot of ground there. Claire Pissell, your thoughts?
Really, really interesting. And I think my takeaway from this, the majority of the United Kingdom are incredibly tolerant. What they're not tolerant of...
more than that, welcoming.
Yeah, welcoming. But what they are not tolerant or welcoming is the sheer quantity of individuals coming in who offer nothing to the country they're coming to.
Culturally, financially,
all of that.
Exactly.
They don't want to live in separate enclaves. They're quite happy when people are just doing their bit.
But you have the sort of middle-class lefty elite who are like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's all about just public service. It's always about money.
I found that interesting.
It's not about whether people are integrated or the number of people. You cannot integrate 900,000 new arrivals. You can't do that. How do I know that? Because it's happened and we haven't. There you go.